Shannon Goggin grew up in small-town Maine, where she picked up the entrepreneurial bug from her relatives. Her first venture was a hot dog stand, and then she moved on to a student-run coffee business at Georgetown. The food service theme had me thinking that maybe Noyo, her current venture, had something to do with Froyo, but it really doesn't. Instead, it's an outgrowth of her experience in tech and benefits with Zenefits, where she recognized the need for a tech layer so that companies in the benefits ecosystem could do business with one another at scale. Noyo, where Shannon is co-founder and CEO, bills itself as the connections gateway for modern insurance, a complete API solution for benefit software transforming data exchange. In her spare time, Shannon enjoys reading essays about places she's lived, including Here's New York by E.B. White and Cool Gray City of Love by Gary Kamiya. I'm David Williams, host of the HealthBiz podcast and president of Health Business Group, a strategy consulting firm that helps companies like Noyo develop robust growth plans. Reach out to me, dwilliams@healthbusinessgroup.com, if you'd like to discuss strategy for your company. And while you're at it, please subscribe to the HealthBiz podcast on your favorite service. Well, Shannon Goggin, co-founder and CEO of Noyo, welcome to the HealthBiz podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Shannon, we're going to talk about Noyo a little bit later, but before we get to that, I want to talk about the things that happened in your life before taking on your current role, and maybe just winding it back to childhood and just asking, what was your upbringing like, and any, childhood influences that have stuck with you?
Sure. I grew up in Portland, Maine, a town just north of Portland, Maine, and had spent my whole life basically on the same street. Two older sisters and my parents, and had a really nice childhood there, but pretty small town. My mom was an entrepreneur, as was my uncle, so I got to see growing up how they were building their companies and, getting creative and things like that. So I think that definitely was an influence and stuck with me as I was thinking about what I might want to do when I grow up. And of course, when you're 5, you don't really know what that means, but you start to see people around you, and that just kind of gets absorbed into the way that you can look at the world.
Shannon, did you have a chance to work with them at all, like in any formal or informal basis, or was it just something you absorbed?
I worked for my mom for a couple of summers in high school doing landscaping in the kind of yards around her offices. So not quite the apprenticeship model for how to run a business, but I did move a lot of dirt in those days.
Sounds good. Well, I know Portland is, I think Portland, Maine, among other things, gave the name to Portland, Oregon. But it also, they have there something that's kind of cool. They have a small airport, but they call it the Jetport. I always thought that was pretty high tech.
The international Jetport, because it goes to Canada.
Exactly. It's probably Prince Edward Isle or something like that. So
Exactly.
So that's good.
In high school, I started working at a hot dog stand. That was my first job. And that, in a way, feels sort of entrepreneurial because you run your own cart, and so you're trying to figure out as customers come up to you, well, what's the best way to arrange the hot dog stand to draw people in, and how do we price appropriately to get people to buy or to tip, or one of the things I learned was we would saute onions and peppers to put on top of the hot dogs. And I learned that if I just kept them sauteing all the time, then the smell would be wafting around and people were more likely to come over. So just little things like that were a ton of fun. And I think sort of helped me figure out the test and iterate part of entrepreneurship.
I think there's a lot of things that are directly applicable. And one of the nice things of the hot dog stand is it's, you don't have to explain to people what you do. They go, they buy it, they eat it, you get the immediate feedback, you're serving a need, and so on. So it's a good place to start. I would agree. Now, you didn't stick around in Maine for your college education, although they have colleges there too. But where did you head from there?
I went to Georgetown in Washington, D.C. That was an amazing experience, getting to live in a bigger city, but on a college campus that had a lot of great community in it. and had a wonderful time at Georgetown. While I was there, I worked at a coffee shop, so continued on managing my little cart, and got to work in what was a student-run company on Georgetown's campus. So everyone from the entry-level cashier to the CEO of the company and the chairman of the board were all undergraduates. And so similarly, we got to figure out every semester, every year, which coffee vendor should we work with? How should we do our pricing? Should we invest in upgrading that sink or that fridge? And a lot of fun, and learned a ton about business there as well. And just frankly, what it feels like to work with an amazing group of people and have fun along the way.
Sounds like there's sort of like an aroma theme developing from the cart up until the cafe. So
yes,
very, very interesting. Now, I noticed a couple of things that were early in your career, and maybe some of them while you were still in school, that were kind of on the environmental front, like Govert and Sierra Club, both things that you were involved in.
Yeah, I did an internship at the Sierra Club. I'm really interested in how you can combine, how you can incentivize a bigger group of people to do, proactive, forward-looking, beneficial things. And certainly the environment is an important area that is going to take the whole world to take care of, and very difficult to create the right incentives around that. So I interned at the Sierra Club and got to see how lobbying works and how they try to advocate for different bills and different things in the Senate and the House while I was there. So that was really interesting. I think one of the things I learned from that was, for me, I felt a little bit more, I felt like I could get things done a little more quickly in a business environment, just for me personally. And so one of the things that I've taken with me is we're trying to build a business that creates positive change in the world while also creating a great product and a business and a great, financial outcome for everyone who's involved. And being able to blend those things together is really special.
So there were a few businesses that you were involved with after the environmental foray. I noticed Monitor, Deloitte, Zenefits, and Shogun, which I didn't know Shogun was a business. I thought it was a novel or something. But what was that pathway like for you?
When I graduated from Georgetown, I went into management consulting, which is something people often do when they don't know exactly what they want to do. And I was no different. It was a chance to try a lot of different things and get to work with a group of really smart people. When I was at Monitor, so Monitor was a sort of boutique strategy consulting firm. I moved to New York to work there and worked with a number of Fortune 500 clients who are trying to think through, where should we expand our business this year, or should we invest in this business unit versus that business unit? They would hire a team of consultants to come in and run that analysis or do those interviews and try to make recommendations so that the management team of the company had the right things to look at when they're thinking through and making these decisions. And one of the things that I really learned there was how to be very rigorous in not just quantitative analysis, but also qualitative analysis, understanding a problem, taking a lot of complex things and being able to put some structure around them and tease out, what are the things that really are making the difference here? Or what are the things that are not relevant? What's the question that we're trying to answer is often the hardest thing to solve. But if you know what question is the most important one to answer, then organizing your decision-making and your analysis around that is a lot easier. And so that's something that I really took from there. I spent about 4 years there. First part was doing more of that standard Fortune 500 companies, analyzing that, market or business unit. And then in the kind of second phase of my time there, I got to do some really interesting things. I worked on international projects, working with the government to try to figure out how to create better incentives and business incentives in those countries. I worked for our innovation arm, where we were helping the Fortune 500 companies say, hey, putting our current set of products aside, what's our mission as a company, and what other creative things could we be doing to further that mission? And that was really fun because it was a lot more what new businesses could this company create? And that was everything from, we did a ton of ethnographic customer research. We would drive around the country and sit in people's living rooms and talk to them and just generate those new thoughts, and then go back and think about what products could they create and how does the business model back it up. That, I think, for me was the part of my career where I thought, okay, I'm really enjoying this and having fun building from scratch on paper these new things. Why don't I go see if I can find a place where I can actually be part of a company that's trying to build something new and bring it to market and create it from the ground up. And that was the point at which I realized, hey, why don't I move out to San Francisco and go find a startup that I can work at? Because that's the whole, I'm as a consultant, you do a lot of writing and thinking, and then you kind of hand it over to someone, and then you move on to the next project. And I wanted to have some skin in the game and put myself on the hard part. Everything, you can write it really nicely on paper, but actually doing it, actually making it happen is really difficult. And that's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So I moved to San Francisco, and I was talking to a whole bunch of different startups, trying to figure out how I could, break into tech, as they say. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. The place that I landed was Zenefits, and I didn't know at the time that much about HR software or benefits. I had done a little bit of work in my consulting days for insurance companies, but it was really, very different getting into the Zenefits opportunity. And Zenefits is a benefits, HR, payroll integrated software. So small businesses who need to take care of their back office will use a company like Zenefits. And we, at the time when I joined in 2014, were somewhere between 100 and 150 employees, had a really successful, fast growth trajectory, and the company would grow we were 1,500 people within a year of when I joined.
Wow.
And so I was there for that really fast-paced growth, and I learned a tremendous amount about everything related to building a company and teams and product in the benefits industry. But that was a really important kind of transition point in my career to get into the technology side of things and really understand what that was all about.
So, Jim, you mentioned about breaking into tech, and what was that like? What are some of the takeaways now from this is 7 or 8 years ago by now? What are you kind of reflecting on that? What was that like, and what advice would you give people maybe in a similar spot to where you were?
I had a really tough time communicating to the startups what I could do for them. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason that I had a hard time communicating it is because I didn't know what I could do for them. And having come out of a phase of my life where it was, applying to college, there's a very clear way that you do that. And after college, applying to jobs, and people are very clear, well, we have these types of jobs open. You can apply, and here's your resume, and we have an interview process. Going into the startup world is just totally different. The types of roles are different. And so you could, what I think I experienced was, in theory, I could have done any one of these jobs, except for, being an engineer, because I didn't have the technical skills to do that. But I could have joined a marketing team. I could have joined a sales team. I could have joined an operations team. But I didn't really know what it meant to do those roles at a tech company. And because I didn't know what they needed from me, when I kind of went to them and said, I can do anything, you just need to tell me what you want, from the other side, that's not very helpful. So they're sort of like, yeah, but do you know how to do SEO? Do you even know what that is? And of course the answer is no. So I think something when I talk to people who are trying to make that same transition, it's really try to understand what the job is and what it looks like to do that job, and then translate your skills into, hey, I can do well in a marketing role because I know how to do quantitative analysis really well. And so when we're evaluating different channels and how marketing campaigns are doing, I can help with that. Being able to communicate that really clearly to the company you're meeting with, especially if they're growing, an early stage company that's growing really quickly, that will help make things a lot easier. Got
it. So eventually you got around to co-founding Noyo, and I am gonna ask you what it's about. I'm saying, based on your experience with the hot dogs and the cafe, it makes me think it was like originally going to be some sort of a froyo, and you decided not to do that. But What's Noyo?
Noyo is what we call it network infrastructure for benefits. Basically, what this means is we are the technology layer that makes it possible for any company in the benefits ecosystem to work with each other, to communicate with each other, to share data with each other safely, compliantly, securely, and importantly, at scale. This came directly out of my experience at Zenefits. So at Zenefits, I started on an operations team, and I ended up as a product manager, and I was responsible for building out our insurance products. So this is for Zenefits, and an HRIS platform. Our customers would sign up for insurance and benefits through our software. And so I was responsible for thinking about how did they do everything from shopping for plans. So at the, once a year when the company HR administrator is choosing the benefits package, we would help them and Zenefits employed brokers at the time understand what plans were available to them to choose from, think through the trade-offs, make a choice, and then ultimately get that policy set up with the insurance company. And then once the company had done that, all of their employees would get the chance to log in and see their options. Maybe there were 3 medical plans to choose from and make their decisions and again, enroll in coverage. I think that this is every company goes through this, benefits decision-making, benefits selection. And we were really excited because we were able to build these product experiences that our customers loved, and they'd been used to doing this on paper for so long. It was very refreshing, I think, and exciting to do it online in a way that was, once you picked your benefits, your payroll would be updated and no one had to do the paperwork shuffle behind the scenes. The challenging part, of course, for us was between Zenefits and the insurance companies. We needed to establish relationships with all of those insurance companies. We needed to know what plans they were offering and what the prices were. We needed to know what the details of those plans were so that we could help our customers understand that. And then when they did sign up and buy a plan, we had to get them enrolled with the insurance company. And of course, as a tech company, we were ready to go with software engineers to build whatever we needed to do to send this data around. The challenge we ran into was the insurance companies, they just weren't ready yet. They were new to the concept of APIs. And so we were often meeting with insurance companies who said, hey, look, really, you just need to email us these paperwork, or you just need to send us a file, a coded file once a week. And we could do that, but it was very challenging to scale efficiently. And it really limited our ability to provide the data transparency to our users that we really wanted to create. And so Noyo actually came out of that. I was looking around as a product manager saying, hey, my friends at other companies get to use Stripe and they get to use Plaid and they get to use Twilio to build their product and let those guys take care of the gnarly back-end infrastructure and just make it all hum smoothly. Nothing like that existed in the benefit space. And so that's what we created Noyo to be.
Got it. Now, benefits is a bit of a backwater, and I think some of it is just maybe the type of people that are employed by those big insurers, and may also just literally be that they are still on, literally the mainframe computers. So API is not necessarily something that comes rolling off their tongues like SEO didn't when you were, starting up at Zenefits. So maybe that's the case. Is the market actually developing, or is it, is it moving quickly now, or we still in sort of the early phase where you're educating people and saying, hey, that's a problem, I hope we can fix it?
The pace accelerates every year. It's actually really, really cool to see. So back from our time at Zenefits, we would approach the insurance companies that we worked with and say, hey, we would love to co-develop an API with you. And we would love to give you engineering resources from our team to help you think through what it might look like. And at the time, 2014, 2015, the response was often like, I don't really know what that is, or we're not ready. And of course, a massive insurance companies making a change like that is a huge investment. It's going to take time because they've been built on these certain type of systems for a long time. Over the last few years, a couple of things have changed. One is there's more software than ever before on the benefits administration side, on the HR side. So there aren't just Zenefits and Gusto and a couple of others kind of advocating for this. There's a whole chorus of companies saying to the insurance carriers, hey, we really want to be able to do this more efficiently with you. And it's going to be great for all of our shared customers. So I think there's been more kind of pressure on that side. And just as more people are working on it, there's more opportunities to learn and to educate. And I think there's a combination of technology can help you scale more efficiently. It can help you grow as an insurance company. It makes your customers happier, and it reduces the operational cost. And so at the board level at these insurance companies, we're seeing more dedicated investment in it as well. It is still early days. Most insurance companies haven't been able to release APIs. And also, I think there's a misconception sometimes that you can just build an API and you're done. But an API is a way for different systems to communicate with each other. And so different systems have, or different types of information you're trying to trade, or when you're trying to trade that. An API for enrolling someone in coverage is completely different than for quoting a plan. It's completely different than renewing a policy. It's completely different than checking on someone's status. And so the scope is really broad. One of the things that we try to do with our customers and our insurance partners is help them prioritize where to start. What's going to make the most impact, and how can we actually get some traction here?
Now, Shannon, I noticed in looking at your site, you've got your solutions divided into three main categories, and maybe they line up a little bit with what you just described as some of the varying challenges. But there's the Noyo 360, there's verification solutions, and there's enrollment. Are those three distinct things, or how do you think about the portfolio of solutions?
Yeah, Noyo's focus is on everything in the policy administration suite for group benefits. So we don't touch Medicare, Medicaid, we don't touch individual insurance. We're focused on the on benefits for employers. And so insurance is a big part of that. Over time, that will include everything from 401k and commuter benefits and HSA and all the new kind of benefits that are, and there's a lot of really exciting things coming on the market here. So you think about the policy administration suite, meaning from the time someone says, hey, I want to offer this plan to my team, you've got to get that policy set up at the insurance company. So it has to be sort of decided and chosen by an employer. And then the insurance company needs to know that they've chosen that and create that record in their system and set up that policy so it's in force, as they say. Then you need to be able to enroll all of your team. So the member level enrollment, which is new hires, but also anytime somebody moves, somebody has a baby, somebody changes their last name, all of those updates need to go back and forth. And that's a really important area of focus. And then there's renewal. So at the end of the year, you need to renew that policy. And there's a lot of things in between that need to happen. But the way that we look at this is we're trying to solve the data gap in the benefits space. Very difficult for a person, forget about the brokers, the employers, the insurance company, very difficult for me or you to know what we're covered for. Is it active? Can we go to that doctor, that dentist, and feel confident that we're not going to get a big bill in the mail later? Or, I stubbed my toe and I asked somebody about it and then they sent me a bill for $400. So what we're trying to do is really focus on at the core, solving that benefits data problem with technology rather than just with services and people.
The stub toe in San Francisco is $400, is $1,200 in Boston. So just be my wife. Be careful where you're stepping when you come for a visit. I noticed in some of your marketing materials, you talked also about alternatives to traditional insurance. I'm not sure what you had in mind by that, but is that an area that you're seeking to encompass as well with Noyo?
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting thing that's developing pretty quickly, actually. So traditional insurance, I would think of as your medical, dental, vision, life insurance plans, supplemental policies. But what we're seeing is there's a whole bunch of carriers who are starting up who are trying to think about new types of policies. You've got policies that focus specifically on fertility benefits, fertility coverage, family planning. And you've got people who are getting creative around what supplemental or umbrella insurance looks like to cover people in 2022. Needs are a little bit different than people in 1970 when a lot of these policies were kind of first crafted. So it's updating those policies. What does the plan include? What does it cover? Do we want people to actually use it? And I think that's really exciting because those companies have an opportunity to get really targeted with the types of employers, the types of users that they're going after. The thing about benefits that I think is so, insurance is unless you've been bitten by the bug, like we both have, many people in this country, shockingly, might not think it's the most interesting thing in the world. But really, benefits is a financial instrument, and it's designed to give you coverage when you need it. And some of that coverage is around access to healthcare, and some of that coverage is around thinking about your retirement planning. Some of it's around your family planning. And so I think there's a real opportunity for people to, if they feel more confident in their benefits and they know what's included, they're going to use it more, which means they're going to live a fuller life, live a healthier life, and really get the protection that they need. I think the frustration a lot of times in benefits and insurance is I feel like the price is going up every year and my coverage is going down.
Yeah.
And I'm so scared of that I don't want to use it. And so what's the point of even having that? And it can be a really comforting, protective force in people's life. And we want to make that easier.
Some of the elements of what you're describing sound like very useful. And at the same time, if I'm an insurer and I finally get into developing something, it's not necessarily I want to do this 100 times. And so is the nature of the market, are there many Noyos around, or is there room for a lot, or is it more of a kind of a unified winner-take-all type of a market, do you think? And it may vary by solution, I don't know, but it seems like it has some elements where I don't know why you would need 10 companies doing something similar.
Yeah, I think about when I was at Zenefits and our friends at Gusto and Rippling and other companies where ideally you can have one thing that you use that has the solutions that meet your use case. And so what we're just always focused on is let's build the network of insurance companies and benefits providers that are relevant to the people that we serve.
Yeah.
And let's make sure that the products are in a place where they're getting not just what they might get from doing it the old way, but they have one place to do it, that we're unlocking new possibilities for them. Some of the things that I get most excited about is when our customers say, hey, because Noyo gives us this certain data that we've never had access to before, we can actually create a new customer experience where as soon as their coverage is active, we can send them an email and tell them, hey, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Go to the doctor. Even if your medical card hasn't arrived in the mail yet, you're good. And that is really cool and exciting. So what we focus on is let's make sure we understand the types of companies that we're trying to serve, the problems that we're trying to solve, and we're just focused on building the best software product we can.
It sounds good. Now, I want to ask you a final question, just changing the subject on reading, and that is whether you ever have a chance to read any books, and if there's anything you would recommend, or anything you recommend that we avoid.
One of I like to read essays. I like to read sort of day in the life is not quite the right term for it, but I like people describing the world around them through their eyes. One of my favorite essays is called Here is New York. It's by E.B. White, who's famous for children's books, but also wrote a lot of writing for adults as well. Beautiful essay, sort of called his love letter to New York City. And there's a San Francisco author as well who wrote a book called Cool Gray City of Love, which is sort of vignettes of San Francisco and explaining the history of that. And I love that book. It's beautiful writing. It's a really great way to walk around the city and kind of have more more texture around what I'm seeing and learn some of the history as well. And it's also kind of essay format, so I can pick it up whenever I'm in the mood for a little bit of that.
No, that sounds good. Well, Shannon Goggin, co-founder and CEO of Noyo, thank you very much for your participation today on the HealthBiz podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was a fun conversation.
You've been listening to the HealthBiz podcast with me, David Williams, president of Health Business Group. I conduct in-depth interviews with leaders in healthcare business and policy. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite service. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe on your second and third favorite services as well. There's more good stuff to come, and you won't want to miss an episode. If your organization is seeking strategy consulting services in healthcare, check out our website, healthbusinessgroup.com.